First going on sale in 1989 and still available to the present day in its updated form, the Mazda MX-5 is the best-selling small two-seater convertible sports car the world has ever seen. I'm Jasper, you're watching Buckle Up, and today I have the absolute pleasure of driving the car that started it all, the NA MX-5. Over 400,000 units of the NA were produced during its production run from 1989 to 97. Initial offerings had a 1.6 litre engine, and by 1993, after a couple of updates, cars had a 1.8 litre engine, like the one in this. The silhouette of the MX-5 is instantly recognisable thanks to its long bonnet, convertible top and quite short overall length. When it comes to the NA MX-5, its most defining styling feature is pop-up headlamps. These have not appeared on any successive generation of MX-5 and ceased to appear on production cars in 2004 when the Lotus Esprit and C5 Corvette ended their production runs. Pedestrian safety regulations and improved lighting technology may have spelled the end for pop-up headlamps, but they certainly do provide the car with a lot of character. The rest of the car's styling is remarkably underwhelming, with the body having simple flowing lines but really few defining features. Viewed now, it really does seem like a back-to-basics approach to motoring, with all models having a manual top and this model in particular having manual wing mirrors and windows. The design language present seems to focus more on flowing lines. There are no sharp creases like you find on modern cars. A simple rear end, rounded tail lights, subtle boot spoiler and lightly flared arches really provide a classy, albeit slightly dated, look to the rear of the car. I must say that I really do like the subtle styling though. I think it has aged very well. Boot space is 130 litres, which is quite good when compared to cars such as Rob's Lotus Elise, but pretty poor in the grand scheme of things. You can definitely get a couple of overnight bags in here though. This 1996 model has the second version of Mazda's 1.8 litre petrol engine. It produced 133 brake horsepower at 6,500 RPM and 155 Newton meters of torque at 5,500 RPM. It's a free revving engine and is neither too underpowered nor too overpowered for this car. With a curb weight of just under a tonne from factory, Mazda really focused on keeping this model as light as they possibly could. They succeeded, perhaps more so than they had intended, because models such as this actually lose weight throughout the course of their lifetime as the body panels, sills and subframes all rust away. I know when the owner of this car bought it last year, it could generously be described as uneconomical to repair and mainly rust. Oh, that is warm. Step inside and the car really does begin to show its age, though you might say it's a back-to-basics approach to motoring. There is a lot of plastic in the interior, with a few key touch points having leather. I'd describe that more as functional rather than luxurious, but then again that would be missing the point of the car. There isn't a great deal of practicality to speak of. You've got the glove box and a couple of storage cubbies, and when the roof is up you can use this rear as a parcel shelf, but that is about it. There is not a great deal of storage in the interior of this car. Functionality is the overwhelming approach in the cabin, with everything you could possibly need as a driver being within easy reach and incredibly easy to operate, from heater controls to light controls to your gear stick and handbrake. One deviation, however, from the norm is the fact that the indicator stalk is on the right hand side of the steering wheel, which can mean the first few times you're driving this car you're going round a roundabout putting your windscreen wipers on instead of indicating. The folding soft top is incredibly simple to operate, with just a couple of catchers holding it in place. With it being a manual roof, you can put it up or down incredibly quickly. What you can now see is footage of me attempting to put the roof up and then take it down. Now bear in mind this is the first time that I'd ever actually done this on this particular car. I had to remove this roof cover, and then because it was the first time and I was kind of just winging it, professional I know, I didn't necessarily do things in the right order. So here for example, I probably should have already moved the sun visors and pre-released the catches, but you know, we live and learn, don't we? It's also worth noting that this roof is very much not in the best shape, and also because the roof had been sitting in the sun for a considerable length of time, well, those catches are really warm. As you can see here though, putting the roof down is actually an incredibly easy process. I probably should have just left those catches open, but it's definitely the kind of roof that you can throw back at a set of traffic lights. It's creaking. I do of course have to be sympathetic though, because the car is quite old. Yeah, it's not a great roof, is it? Now I've faffed around having a look at the car, let's do what the MX-5 is all about. Go for a drive. And before we set off, make sure to buckle up. Okay, so massive continuity error because when I was going to drive it last time, the clutch was so cut to me 2 weeks later, having had a haircut, actually finding out how this car drives. So, first impressions are very positive. The gear shift is very, very engaging, and the throttle is pretty sharp at responding. Steering is heavy, at lower speeds especially. But then again, with no power steering, it's going to be. It's expected. I've not taken this engine above 3000 RPM yet, but it does sound pretty decent even below that. The suspension soaks up British roads very well, so stock suspension in this, pretty decent, I'd say. When it comes to ride, definitely. Yet to find out how it handles. Brakes, there are brakes, they could be better. They aren't quite as sharp as in modern cars, but you know, it's an older vehicle, no ABS, you don't particularly want to tap the pedal and then have the wheels absolutely lock up. The steering wheel is the perfect size really, it's just, it's not too small, and one thing that you really don't want in a sporty car is a large steering wheel, because then you've got to move your arms far too much to actually go around a corner. This is just about bob on, I'd say. The power delivery is incredibly linear, and the throttle responds so quickly, it's brilliant. You can blip it and rev match excellently. Oh. Yes, let's not get the back end out. The indicators being on the wrong side of the steering wheel, if you aren't from Japan in the 90s, is a little disconcerting, and you do have to kind of tweak yourself to remember. But hey, this is not bad at all. Given it's only 133 horsepower, it does gather speed very well, and I imagine that's because it's quite a light vehicle, and this one is definitely lighter than it was when it left the factory, as bits of it are missing. You can see why the NA MX-5 is kind of hailed as the standard when it comes to drivers' cars, because this handles very well. And the whole driving experience is brilliant. The gears are perfectly matched for the range of speeds and revs that you'd be changing at to just row through this gearbox. It's barely a hand's length from third to fourth. It's beautifully short and sharp. There's a decent amount of travel in this brake pedal before anything starts happening, but I mean, as long as you're progressive with the braking, that's not really going to be an issue. The steering at low speeds is heavy. I mean, it's going to be heavier than a modern car, that side. But, I mean, yeah, it's one of those things, I guess. You cannot deny that you get a lot of feedback from the road because it's completely connected. This driving experience is about as connected as you can get on a car that you can reasonably easily daily, because this has enough practicality and enough comfort-ish, especially now this stereo is being replaced, to be a car that you can pretty easily use every day. The whole origin of the MX-5 was, it was meant to be a more reliable version of the classic British Roadster. 2 seats, convertible top, bloody good handling, and a peppy engine. And Mazda really knocked it out the park because it's such a joy to drive. And this, in its NA form, is brilliant. The chassis is fantastic. And of course, rear wheel drive is the best drivetrain power delivery method that you can have for a sporty car. The feel of rear wheel drive is so much more engaging and enjoyable than a front wheel drive sports car. Sorry, Golf GTI owners. Now, I'm finding that this 1.8 revs incredibly quickly. I'm led to believe that the 1.6s will rev even faster, but this engine is a little gem. Power delivery is incredibly linear, but obviously without having a turbo, this engine does seem to lack the oomph that modern turbo cars have. But I'm not complaining about that. Oh, this gearbox is brilliant. Yeah, the rear wheels do lock up because this car does not have ABS. It also doesn't have an airbag for me, so I'm not going to crash it. Visibility is pretty good, actually. The wing mirrors, while being very old school and fully manually adjustable by just pushing them, you can see well enough behind you. Rear view is excellent, actually, even with the roof up through the plexiglass rear screen. Yeah, the clutch feels much better than it did last time I drove this. As in, there isn't this much pedal travel before anything happens, and then everything happens in that much pedal travel. Life is about more than power and 0 to 60s, and this car really does show that because it handles so well and the driving experience is so brilliant. It's so well balanced. The near perfect 50-50 weight distribution does just make it so predictable in terms of handling. Engine in the front, power in the rear, convertible top, what more do you need to have fun on some twisty roads in a British summer? Nothing. It's brilliant. Oh! Ha ha! What I'm really looking forward to is turning this car round with its steering. The trick with no power steering is to not turn the wheel until you are moving. I mean, you really shouldn't do that in any car, but haha, no Austin Powers million-point turn today. Is it the generation to go for? I'm not sure, because certainly successive generations don't have as much individuality, but very common issues, rust, were better dealt with in future generations. And of course, the more modern a car is, the more livable it is. I mean, not that this is bad, by all means, but the more modern a car, you know, the easier it is to just live with. Oh, it's such good fun to drive this. It really is. Top down and just enjoying a B road. And that's the thing, the weather doesn't have to be perfect to enjoy it, because the heater's pretty decent, and unless it's raining, you can shield yourself pretty well from the elements. Now, just to see how livable this is, I'm going to do something that I have to do sometimes, which is parallel park. Oh. Not fun. The sweet handling and back to basics approach to motoring offered by the MX-5 really do make it an absolute gem. A two-seater sports car is never going to be the most practical thing on the road, but honestly, the MX-5 does a good job of it with reasonable boot space and very simple running requirements. When it comes to which generation is best, though, that really is a question best answered by you, because each person's requirements for a car are different, and the performance and styling changes that have been made over the years and successive generations of MX-5 have improved it for some, but not necessarily for others. The starting point for it all, though, is an incredible car, and realistically, whatever people say about generations of MX-5 getting bigger and heavier, Mazda have kept working at the formula and making improvements over generations, so rust issues which plagued this generation, the NA, are not quite as bad with the NB, and so on and so forth. The quirky elements of the NA, coupled with its raw driving experience, really do make this car a compelling buy for anybody with a keen interest in driving. It really is a car that I can wholeheartedly recommend buying, if you can find a good one, that is. All that remains is for me to say thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave a like down below. Let us know what you think in the comments. Do you disagree with what I've said? What do you think of your MX-5 if you own one? And please check out all of our social media links, which are in the description. Have a look at our merchandise or merch, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.